Alrighty, morning everyone and welcome back to another beautiful video on this beautiful channel on another beautiful day. In today's video I want to talk to you about two very important scrapping tools. And the tools we're talking about are, well, surprise, the tools that are right in front of us. First of all, we have these pair of long and slender tongs that you can use to reach stuff that is inside of crevices, for example, or like at a place where you just don't want to stick your hand inside of, which is, well, you come across a lot of those when you're doing scrapping. And the other one is for gripping things, holding onto stuff and maybe also cutting some stuff in the process of doing so. And that's these multi-purpose general, household and working pair of pliers. So both of those have very specific uses when it comes to scrapping. Well, of course, not really, because both of these are multi-purpose pliers, so they have a lot of different tasks that they can do. But mostly what I use each and every one of those for is gripping stuff and getting stuff out of places where I just want it not to be in anymore. Very complicated explanation for something that is actually very simple, but we're gonna go over that in just a minute. I think we'll start with this one, this like slender and pointy pair of pliers. And the main purpose that I use this for, it's actually not a lot, I don't use these a lot, but when I use them, they are extremely important. And well, it's kind of obvious for what you would use them for, and that is obviously to reach into tight spaces and pull stuff out that you couldn't otherwise, because obviously it's got a very, very, very tiny tip in comparison to, its overall size, which is not small. I just have pretty big hands, so it looks not big, but I think it's like, how long is this thing? I don't know. It probably says it on here somewhere, but I think it's like, probably like 16, 17, maybe 18 centimeters. It's not tiny. Anyways, very, very important. For example, if you drop a screw somewhere where it really shouldn't be, like in an outlet or whatever, which has happened to me multiple times, which is not great. So you got to get that out of there. Or if you're dropping something like a piece of copper or something like that into some crevice that you don't want it to be in, or maybe into your steel bin. That's something that actually happens a lot to me. If I drop something of value into my steel bin, I dropped my keys in there once, and obviously steel bin, yeah, well, very much, very heavy, very jagged and sharp pieces of steel in there. You really don't want to reach in there with your hand. And that's where something like that comes in really handy. And also, just like in general, not scrapping related, just in everyday life, it's just very handy to have something like that, where you can reach stuff that you would normally have no chance of actually reaching. So it's just in general a very useful tool. I'm not sure if it's necessarily useful for street scrapping. I wouldn't say so necessarily, just because it's got a very specific use, and that is in taking apart stuff and stuff like that, and you don't really do that on the streets, are you? So I don't think it's very important for street scrapping, but if you're taking apart stuff at home and stuff like that, this is important, I would say so. So the next pair of tongs that I've got here, the next pair of pliers, is this one. General multi-purpose thingamajigger. This is a big one. This is like 25 centimeters, I think. Maybe even... It's hard to remember how long these really are. There might be... I'm just going to say they're 22.5, but they could also be 25s. I don't know. Anyways, it is, in my opinion, a very important tool as well, even though it is very big. So you wouldn't think so, but something like that is very important, especially if you're taking apart bigger stuff, like for example, bigger transformers like I'm doing, or maybe like appliances and stuff like that. This is just really useful. It's got a very beefy, very big head, obviously made out of forged steel, so it's very, very strong. It's also chrome plated, but that doesn't really matter. It just doesn't rust, so that's good. But you can really grip stuff very tightly with this. Of course, if you take a look at that, you can already see that's going to grip onto stuff very nicely. And this is actually a new pair because my old one broke, so this is why it doesn't look used at all. And it has a very effective cutter in there. Honestly, in my opinion, maybe even more effective than most smaller side cutters go. My normal pair of side cutters that I carry around. And I think this is more powerful, better, because it's further back and further and closer to the actual joint, so you can exert more force onto whatever you want to cut with it. However, it's also big, right? It's a very big thing, and it's not very handy to carry around. It doesn't fit into most pockets and stuff like that. So that's why I don't, but you could carry that, and it would be most likely a bit more useful for cutting stuff. But of course, it doesn't have a cutting tip. You can't cut anything with the tip, so that's not great, but whatever. What is also cool about this is that you can actually use it with both hands. Both hands fit onto this thing, as you can see right here. Like pretty much, right? You get the point. And if you want to cut something really big with this is really helpful. Because if you want to just do that with one hand, yes, of course, you can do it in the back and you're going to get more leverage and stuff like that. But it just makes it so much easier to be able to do it with both hands. And the grip is also kind of shaped that way, right? You've got a little bit of an indent here, and a little bit of an indent here. So, you can... I don't think it was intended to be used with both hands, but you could, right? And I'm not saying that you should try to cut something with it that it's not supposed to cut, of course not, because then it would break at some point. These things have their limits, even though they are produced in a very high quality standard, to a very high quality standard. But it's so much easier on your hands and your joints in general if you do it with both hands. It really is. It's night and day difference. You're basically not going to damage your hands whatsoever if you do it like that. If you do it with one hand, however, very easy to do so. You would think it would be hard to damage your hand, right? With just the force of your hand. But no, believe me, it's very easy. If you've got decently strong hands, you can damage your own hand very easily with just the force of your hand. So be very careful of that, be mindful of that, and something like that is really useful for that. If you want to bend metal and stuff like that, out of the way maybe and stuff like that, if you strip the bolt or something on an appliance, but you just want to get into the inside, you can actually use this, and really this grips on really well to like thin sheet metal and stuff like that. You can bend it out of the way, you can even rip it out of the way. Works really well, I've done all of that, and that stuff you can definitely do. With ripping, be careful, because that also exerts a lot of force on your wrists and all other kinds of joints. And joints are pretty fragile stuff. So, as I said, be mindful. You don't want to hurt yourself because, when you're scrapping, this is kind of like your only way of making money, not hurting yourself. Because if you're hurt, can't make any more money. Sucks. I tried that, can't recommend. So there you go. This one's also useful for like pulling out wire, and this same goes for both, because this one also has a cutter, right? You can see that. Same goes for both of these. If you've got wire, for example, windings of transformers and stuff like that, that's stuck into the steel core, whatever, and doesn't want to come out, very easy to do a quick process with that, just with one pair of pliers, either this one or this one. You just grab it, you pull it out, and you cut it off pretty much in the same motion. Really easy with both this one and this one. Would be even easier if this was spring-loaded. Unfortunately, I haven't found one of those yet, but really, it's really easy to do that. You can't, unfortunately, do that with a pair of side cutters, at least not if the pair of side cutters is sharp. If you've got an old dull one, yes, you can pinch it and pull it out, and not pinch it a lot, but if you've got a sharp one, it will just cut it, it's obvious. And if it's dull, you also have the problem that you have to exert a lot of force when you actually want to cut it. So either way, if you've got something like this that has a dull, quote unquote, pulling phase, and then a sharp cutting phase, sharp cutters, really useful for that kind of stuff, because you don't have to switch around pliers all the time. The most annoying thing ever is having to switch around between like 2 or 3 pairs of pliers all the time. Drives you nuts, because it really is so much more effective to just be able to do everything with one. So that's also a very useful tactic with these things. So in conclusion, I think these are important. I think anyone should have them. And as always, don't cheap out on important tools, right? These are not crazily expensive. You might pay like $35 for one of them, but they are worth it. They will last you a crap ton of time, and you won't regret to go for the high quality option. Doesn't have to be this brand, can be any high quality brand. This is just a brand that I use. I don't get any money for recommending them. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed today's video. I really hope you got something from it, I guess. If you've got any more opinions about these tools maybe, or want me to talk about some other kind of tools, be sure to write that in the comments below. If you've got any other questions, be sure to write that there as well. I'd be very happy to answer that as always. And you can also rate the video with either a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whatever you might want to do. And also subscribe to the channel, because that would make me very happy. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Have a fantastic week, and until next time.